Hey guys, how's it going? Jacob here. Welcome back to another Doctor Who video on the channel. The last time I did my top 5 favorite Ninth Doctor stories, and this time I'm going to be doing my top 5 favorite 10th Doctor stories. Definitely David Tennant has plenty of good stories. He is, even today, considered one of the most popular doctors. That is my opinion, but I feel like it is a very commonly shared opinion. If you like him too, that's great. If you don't, then this video may not be for you, but feel free to still listen anyway if you want to hear my opinion. Not a professional critic. I don't believe there is such a thing as a professional critic, but I just have my personal favorites. And if you agree, that's great. If you don't, then feel free to comment your personal favorites down below and explain why. But if you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and hit that like button down below to show some greatly appreciated support. Comment whatever you want, just be cool about it. Subscribe if you like the content, and ring that bell to be notified about more uploads. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Number one is going to be the two-parter from Series 3, the episodes Human Nature and the Family of Blood. I thought that it was just a really great story because we saw the 10th Doctor as not the 10th Doctor for so much of it. Because basically, it was the Doctor and Martha were on the run from the Family of Blood because they were seeking to take over the Doctor's body because they wanted the life of they wanted the body of a Time Lord so that they could practically live forever with his extended lifespan and regenerations. So he ended up using a chameleon arch to transform himself into a human, and he hid in 1913 because they didn't see the Dr. Martha, so they didn't know what they looked like. But they did have his scent, so they were going to track him. And it was very interesting because as a human, he had dreams of himself as the Doctor and Martha as his companion. And I thought that was really interesting how, like, it's still seared through a little bit. And then the way that he could turn back into the Doctor was with his pocket watch, where it opened up, it would release his Time Lord essence, and he would then turn into the Doctor again. And Martha, she was just in disguise, but how she had to try to act like she just fit in there, so she had to act like she was basically his servant. And I thought that was really interesting seeing Martha have to put up with some of the students being kind of racist towards her and how they would like treat her poorly because of the fact that she's black, but then how I like the moment whenever Nurse Redfern was saying, "Oh, please, there's no way that you can know anything about medicine," and then she lists off like all of this information, and she's saying, "Well, how could you possibly know that?" And then she's saying, "Yeah, I had to study for my exams," which shows like how smart Martha can really be, and that she's not afraid to stand up to people like that. And I also just really love seeing the Doctor as John Smith fall in love with Joan, because I thought it was just really amazing how he was picturing his life that he could have with her. Like he would have like brief flashes of the life that he could live with her, and then how at the very end, whenever they were in contact with each other, they pictured their whole life together, and then how Joan was saying the Time Lord has such adventures, but he can never have one like that. But then John Smith said, "But I could." And then whenever the Doctor, or rather John Smith, decided to turn back into the Doctor, how Joan said, "You chose to change, but he chose to die," saying that he was a better man than the Doctor. And then how the Doctor felt kind of guilty because she had said, "Just answer me this. If you hadn't chosen this place on a whim, would anyone here have died?" Because the Family of Blood ended up attacking whenever they realized that the Doctor was there. So they still tried to find him, and they ended up killing so many people. And Joan felt really sad that, like, even though she knew that the Doctor didn't want it, the fact that he still chose to be there, and that caused so many people's deaths. And then how the Doctor, or sorry, I keep getting mixed up, how John Smith felt so tortured because he realized that his whole life was a lie. Like, he realized because, like, Joan was asking him, like, all these like detailed facts about his childhood, like, oh, what are like some of the places you'd like to play as a kid, and how he couldn't answer that. Like he just remembered like names and street corners, all that kind of stuff. So he realized that it wasn't real and that his whole life was a lie. And then how he was asking Martha why, like, what purpose do you even serve for traveling with him? And she's saying it's because he's lonely. And then he says, and that's what you want me to become, saying like, why would I want to become someone who is lonely like that? I intentionally have to be lonely. Now, like I said, how like certain bits and pieces sort of peer in, like how she asked where you're from and he randomly said Gallifrey. And then how, like, you see he has, like, some of the Doctor's reflexes, like, whenever he saved that child. And then how whenever Martha showed him the sonic screwdriver, how, like, he felt kind of surprised to see it. Uh, it had some impact on him. I just thought it was really great. Plus, I also like the idea how it's actually based off of a Seventh Doctor novel. So I thought that was really cool how, like, years later it actually got made into an episode for the 10th Doctor. And I think that it's just really cool how it plays out, seeing David Tennant play someone other than the Doctor, and like seeing him have these human emotions where he's just acting like a normal person. Overall, definitely a great story. It's always one that I enjoy watching. And next up on the list is going to be Utopia, The Sound of Drums, and Last of the Time Lords, the Series 3 three-part finale. It did a lot. It brought back Captain Jack. It brought back the Master. It added in so much to the Doctor and Master's relationship because for so long, the Master has always wanted to take over the Earth, and here it is, he finally did it. Because at the end of Utopia, the Master turned out to be Professor Yana in human form to escape the Time War, which I thought was really amazing because they brought in that aspect from human nature where the Doctor made himself human and then so did the Master so he could escape the Time War. And then how earlier on in the season, the Face of Both said, "You are not alone," which that, like, those initials spell out Yana, as in Professor Yana, so I thought that was kind of interesting as well. And then how, like I said, the Master stole the TARDIS, and then he ended up becoming Prime Minister. I thought that was, like, whoa, they brought the Master back in such a big way. Like I said, he literally managed to take over the Earth, like, after all this time, and then he was literally about to go take over the universe. And then how, like, the Doctor talked about how the Master used to be a normal person, but then whenever he looked into the untempered schism, how that drove him mad. So that's why he acts this way. And then how they were about to try to go reveal the Master for who he is on the Valiant, whenever the Master was going to have the meeting with the Tocylphane. But then the Master ended up aging the Doctor because he had the Doctor's hand, and he used the DNA technology from Professor Lazarus earlier on in the season, adding up to the whole arc. And then how later on, whenever he aged him again, and you see he's this tiny, deformed creature, he barely even looks like his former self. Like, that was just so sad to look at. But then at the very end, how Martha traveled the Earth, and then she told everyone about the Doctor, and how in the meantime, the Doctor tuned himself into the matrices for the Archangel Network, so that whenever everyone thought about him at the same time, all across the planet, that restored him. And the Doctor was saying the one thing you can't stop them from doing is thinking, and how you see him get fully restored, saying, like, how can you call the human race degenerate when they can do this? And then the Master was saying, like, no, it's not fair, because after all this time, he'd finally won, and you saw that he was afraid. Then how, even then, after all this time, the Doctor said that he forgave the Master for everything. And then whenever the Doctor was saying that he was going to have the Master travel with him, saying, like, the only safe place for him is the TARDIS, and how, like, he actually considered it somewhat good, because that meant that he got to be with the only other Time Lord. But then the Master's wife, yes, he has a wife, ended up shooting him. Then the Doctor was saying, like, look, it's just a bullet, you can regenerate. But then how he was saying that he refuses, because he was saying that he would rather die than be imprisoned for the rest of his life with the Doctor. And then how you see the Doctor's genuinely sad, not because that would mean that he's the last of the Time Lords again, but because this is his childhood friend, and even as his enemy, they still went through so much, mentioning, like, the Axons, the Daleks, all that stuff. And then how sad he was whenever the Master died, and then how he had to burn his body. But then at that one moment, you saw that woman pick up the Master's ring, showing that part of him had survived. And then at the very end, whenever Martha ended up leaving, like, how this was, like, the one time that a companion chose to leave without, like, any consequences. Rose, she got stuck in a parallel world. Donna ended up forgetting. Amy and Rory got stuck back in time. The Doctor ended up forgetting Clara. Like, basically just any companion, it's, like, circumstances where they can't come see the Doctor again, or it'd be, like, really hard. But then with Martha, how she chose to leave because she realized that she doesn't need to feel like she's second best to the Doctor, how she saved the world. She realized that she can do a lot on her own. and she wants to stay behind on Earth so she continue to help out there. And I thought that was just really great, a great way to have Martha's finale, and then how just that bonus bit at the very end, how it shows the SS Titanic, be specific, crashing in, but then how technically for the children in need special time crash, you actually see the 10th Doctor meet the 5th Doctor in between that. So I thought that's kind of funny how they had that fill in where the 10th Doctor met his past self. Side note there, not technically part of Last of the Time Lords, but I thought it was worth mentioning because it's really cool seeing David Tennant and Peter Davison together like that. But number 3 on the list is going to be The Fires of Pompeii. It should be on my list. I feel like it makes sense. I'd kind of be a hypocrite if it weren't, because I did my top 5 favorite stories overall, so I feel like it makes sense that it's in this one. So basically, same stuff happens. The major thing that sticks out to me is the fact that the Doctor became part of events, and how since the pyrovals had interfered, Vesuvius was never going to erupt. So the Doctor was saying that in order for Vesuvius to erupt, it wasn't just history, that he had to be the one to do it, and how heavily you saw that weigh on his conscience, because he already had the guilt of destroying his own people, but now he had to wipe out 20,000 people in Pompeii to save everyone else in the world. But then how Donna was thinking, I don't want him to have to carry this grief on his own, so she did it with him. And then also how with Evelina and Lucius, how they predicted all this stuff that was going to happen. Like Lucius said that she is returning, talking about Rose, and then there's something on your back to Donna, referring to the time beetle. And then how Evelina was talking about the cascade of Medusa herself, how all of the planets would be in the Medusa cascade later on. I just thought it was really cool. I say that a lot, don't I? I feel like I say that a lot in a very generic way. But then how the Doctor was about to leave, and Donna was saying, look, you should go save Caecilius and his family. And he's like, look, I already had to put history back in play, so he just wanted to leave. He didn't want to be there anymore. But then how Donna convinced him to just save someone, and then how that carried on later on for the 12th Doctor. So that's why he looked like Caecilius, because it was like subconsciously Donna reminding him to just save someone. So I thought that was really cool. There I go again. Damn it. But I thought it was really interesting. That's different. How you saw how much that event affected the Doctor's life. So, yeah, quick turnaround. We're going to go on to number 4. I got to say, I am a sucker for the season finales, but it is going to be The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. First of all, I just like how it's basically one big crossover. Like, you have Sarah Jane and Captain Jack, but not just that, you also have K9 and Luke, Sarah Jane's son. And then you have Ianto and Gwen from Torchwood. I thought that was really interesting how they tied them in, even though they weren't as major, how they were still there. And then how this was the biggest thing that happened with the Daleks, basically. I don't think the Daleks have ever had a bigger plan, really, because they were literally going to destroy all realities so that they were the only species, not just the only species in this universe, but every universe. And then how all of the Doctor's companions had to get involved, because the Earth literally moved to a different part of space. And then how all of them knew, okay, we need to get in contact with the Doctor. And then how after all this time, Rose came back, because she knew what was going to happen, because Pete's world was like 3 years ahead or so, I believe, than the Doctor's universe. So for them, it had already started to happen. So that's why Rose traveled back to this universe, because she needed to try to help out and warn the Doctor and help him and all that stuff. But then seeing all of them, like how they didn't just have Rose, they also brought back Jackie and Mickey. They were helping out. And then how, like, you saw Wilfred and Sylvia, and then you saw Martha's mom, Francine. Just how they brought in, like, so many significant characters. And then I loved the confrontations between the Doctor and Davros, because this was the first time they brought back Davros in this series. And I thought that was amazing how they brought him back. And then how they had Dalek Khan, how the last time we saw him was Series 3. But then how he flew into the Time War to try to save Davros so that Davros could restore the race. But then at the same time, that cost Dalek Khan his sanity. And then he seemed to also become a prophet. And then he was talking about how he was seeing the end of so much, but then how it turns out that he actually lied to Davros and the Daleks, because he actually, in his craziness, he realized the evil of the Daleks, and that's when he knew that the Doctor had to stop them. So he manipulated all these events to happen so that the Daleks could eventually perish. And then I loved seeing the Meta-Crisis 10th Doctor, how like the Doctor's hand after all this time still came into play, how it then formed a new Doctor, because Donna got trapped in the TARDIS and she was about to die along with the TARDIS. And then like the Doctor's hand was calling out to her, and then she reached in that ended up creating the Meta-Crisis, where then the Meta-Crisis Doctor was created, but then he had half human DNA. He only had one heart. He couldn't regenerate. But then Donna ended up gaining part Time Lord DNA, where then she gained like the Doctor's mind. She had all this knowledge. I thought that was really great, seeing Donna at the last second. The Daleks and Davros were about to win, but then Donna shows up, because whenever Davros electrocuted her, that then sparked in her Time Lord consciousness. So then she knew all this stuff. She knew how to defeat the Daleks. She knew how to stop them. And then it was so great because you basically had three Doctors. You had the 10th Doctor, the Meta-Crisis Doctor, and Donna. And then how also it played in earlier how the Ood said the Doctor Donna, and they were referring to not the Doctor and Donna, but Donna whenever she gained the Doctor's mind. But then the departures were also so sad as well. Like, I guess this isn't a departure, but I just thought of it, how Harriet Jones came back as well, and then how she had to sacrifice herself in order to send the subwave network to Jack, but then the Daleks knew her location, so she sacrificed herself to help save everyone. And then whenever Davros was saying, how many more have died in your name, Doctor? And then they had the flashback of all the people who sacrificed themselves to save the Doctor. But then whenever they were at Bad Wolf Bay and Pete's World, how Rose was saying, I spent so much time trying to find you, I can't go back now. But then the Doctor's saying, I can't leave the Meta-Crisis Doctor on his own. He committed genocide. He was born out of bloodshed and battle. So then he was saying that he was leaving him with Rose so that she could make him better, like how she made him better when she first met the Ninth Doctor. And then how she was saying, the last time we were on this beach, what was the last thing you said to me? And then how the 10th Doctor said, Rose Tyler. But then he didn't finish the sentence, and then she asked the Meta-Crisis Doctor, and then how he whispered in her ear, let's just face it, he said, I love you, because then they started kissing, and then how the Doctor slipped away, and then how he saw Rose was kind of sad, but she still had her own Doctor, because he would age right alongside her, so they could grow old together. So, in the end, Rose still has the Doctor with her. But then how, later on, since Donna is still part human, her brain can't support a Time Lord consciousness, so it was burning her up and killing her inside. So then how the Doctor had to wipe her memory, and then how the Doctor was saying how that part of Donna was dead, fulfilling Dalek Khan's prophecy. And then how the Doctor was saying, even though she'll never remember it, there are people hundreds of thousands of light years away singing songs about her because she is the most important woman in the universe. And then how the Doctor was so sad that he had to lose Donna, not just because she was left behind, but because all of those great things that she did, that she can't even remember it. And then how Wilfred was even saying that Donna was better with him. And then whenever the Doctor was leaving, and then Wilfred was saying that he would look up at the sky every night and think about the Doctor on Donna's behalf. And then how also Wilfred was saying, you've had all these friends and companions, who do you have now? And then how he was saying that he has no one, and that was just really sad. That final moment in the TARDIS, whenever you just see him like gaze off into the distance, because he knows he's on his own again. And I just think that's really interesting, because of the fact that it doesn't directly lead into anything else. It's such a sad departure. It's not like, oh, here we go again, like onto some potential happy moment later on. It's just this really sad moment. So I gotta say, that one definitely carries a lot of feels in it. But finally, and I said I'm a sucker for season finales and such. Well, I'm a sucker for regeneration stories, so it's gotta be The End of Time. They brought back the Master again, and this was basically just as big, if not bigger than what he did the last time, because it didn't just bring back the Master. The Master ended up bringing back the Time Lords and Gallifrey, but then how the 10th Doctor knew that his death was incoming, and then how Wilfred was having dreams about the Master, so he came into contact with the Doctor. And the Doctor was saying, like, how is it that we keep meeting like this? First I met you at Christmas, and then with Donna, and now all of a sudden you're able to find me so quickly. So he was saying that there must be, like, some greater force that's binding the two of them together. And then how I thought it was interesting. I'm saying that just as much as cool. I liked how they had Wilfred traveling with the Doctor. It wasn't one of his normal companions. It was Wilfred traveling with him. That was something really unexpected. Obviously, I didn't watch it when it first came out, but I found it very unique how he was traveling with Wilfred. And then how whenever the Master had managed to capture the Doctor and Wilfred, how he gave Wilfred the explanation as to why he had the drumming in his head. And then how the Doctor kept saying that he was willing to help the Master figure it out. And then how he was saying you don't need to own the universe, you just need to see it. And then how, like, the Master was actually starting to think about it. Like, he was actually starting to think about what would happen if he just saw the universe. And then the Doctor was saying, like, we could go see the universe together. You don't need to be like this. But then how Wilfred mentioned the noise in his head, and that kind of, like, snapped the Master out of it almost. And then whenever the Doctor and Wilfred were up in the spaceship, and the Doctor was saying how he's older than Wilfred, how he's 900 years, and Wilfred's like, oh, we must look like insects to you. The Doctor said, you look like giants. And I thought that was so emotional. It had so much impact behind it, because the fact that even though the Doctor and Time Lords in general can live so much longer than humans, the fact that they're able to do so much in such a short lifespan compared to him, how, like, in about only 90 years of life or so, even less than that, humanity is able to achieve so much. They can build so many things, they can have so many relationships, how he values the fact that they can do so much in so little time. And then how Wilfred tried to give the Doctor his gun so that he could kill the Master, and he was saying that's how the Master started, trying to kill someone before they could kill him. And how he's saying that no matter what, he just couldn't do it. But then whenever the Master sent the Doctor that message saying that he found a white point star, then the Doctor got terrified because he realized that the Time Lords were returning, because a white point star can only be found on Gallifrey. So then he took the gun because he knew that he might actually need it now. And I loved that scene so much with the Doctor, the Master, and Rassilon. It had so much intensity behind it because after so long, you see the Doctor use a gun and how he's holding them at gunpoint. And then how, like, you see he's hesitant to do it. The Master saying, you never would, you coward. Because the Master was, like, the Master didn't see the major threat. He was saying the Time Lords are restored. But then the Doctor was saying you weren't there in the final days of the war, and now it's not just the Time Lords and Gallifrey coming through, but the Daleks can come through, the Skaro degradations, the Horde of Travesties, the Nightmare Child, the Could Have Been King with his army meanwhiles and never wars, like everything from the Time War, and how it was unleashed right upon the Earth, and then how Rassilon was saying that they would unleash the final sanction where they would destroy time itself, and that only the Time Lords would survive as beings of consciousness. So the Doctor was saying that's why I had to stop them. So then you see the Doctor was pointing his gun at Rassilon at first. Then he turned to the Master, saying, like, he's to blame, not me. But then the Master was saying, oh, the link is in my head. If you kill me, they go back. And then how he turned towards Rassilon again. And how I am talking so fast. The Master was saying that the Doctor never would because he's too much of a coward. But then how the Doctor looked over at that one woman that had been speaking to Wilfred, and I just like to assume that that's his mother. I think I read that Russell T Davies intended for that to be his mother. So you see how guilty he felt because he didn't want his final acts of life to be murder. Like, he knew that he was about to die, but he didn't want to have to kill someone in the process. So then he turned back towards the Master and told him to get out of the way, because then he ended up shooting the machine that had the star plugged into it. So that ended up breaking the link. And then he was saying, like, the Time Lords were going back into hell. And then Rassilon almost he didn't shoot him. He almost killed the Doctor. And then how the Master stepped in and saved the Doctor, saying, like, you made me, like, you ruined my entire life by driving me crazy and such. So that's why he was getting back at Rassilon because of that. and then how the Master ended up going to Gallifrey, and then how later on, obviously in Series 9, you find out how he ended up escaping. And then finally you have those 4 knocks. The Doctor thought that he managed to survive. He thought that he was alive. He thought that he managed to escape the prophecy. Then Wilfred ended up knocking 4 times because Wilfred ended up in that chamber. I don't remember exactly how to phrase it, but he ended up getting stuck in there so that he could release someone else. And then the Doctor was saying that it's overflowing with radiation, and if you touch one control, then it'll flood, and it'll kill the person who's in there. Like, he couldn't even use the sonic screwdriver. So then Wilfred was saying, just leave me, I've lived a long enough life. And the Doctor's saying, well, you're not even anyone important. Like, you're not even someone important, but I could do so much more because of who I am. And he's saying, like, after all the stuff that he's done and all the stuff that he could do, like, that's his reward, that he has to sacrifice himself to kill, or sorry, save, not kill, save an ordinary person. And how literally he made the ultimate sacrifice. Like, Wilfred is no one special, he's just some ordinary person. But the fact that the Doctor would sacrifice his own life to save Wilfred meant so much. And how he was saying, Wilfred, it's my honor. That was amazing hearing that. How he was willing to weigh down his own life to save Wilfred. Even though he could do so much more. He could save so many more people and planets. But then how he managed to survive. And then it turns out that he survived. But then his regeneration started. And then how, in the process, he spent a whole year going through and checking up on his past companions. Like, you saw him check in on Martha and Mickey, where they got married. I thought that was a nice, small little thing there. He checked up on Jack after the whole thing had happened with the Children of Earth incident. And he ended up introducing Jack to Alonzo, which I thought that's pretty funny how they worked that in there. And then how he went to go see Verity Newman, which is Joan Redfern's granddaughter. That was really amazing how they had her there, because the Doctor was saying, was she happy in the end? How he didn't go back and see Joan specifically, but he at least went to go see her granddaughter to ask about Joan, because he knew that he couldn't confront her again. But how that one person still meant so much to the Doctor, and he wanted her to be happy. And then he went to go see Donna, Wilfred, and Sylvia one more time. He showed up at Donna's wedding, and he gave Wilfred and Sylvia a lottery ticket. And then he says that he actually bought the ticket with money that he borrowed from Sylvia's deceased husband, which I thought that was nice how they mentioned that. How it turns out that even though Donna's father is deceased, how it turns out that he still helped her out like that. Because, you know, the Doctor, being a time traveler, knew that the ticket was going to be a winner, and it was like 3 times as much for that ticket. So Donna was going to be rich. So how he helped secure her future like that. But then how the final person that he went to go see before he regenerated was Rose. How he traveled back to 2005, and you see Jackie and Rose on New Year's Day. And then the Doctor was hiding out, and then Rose walked by, and then she noticed him, and then he was saying, like, what year is this? And then she's saying January the 1st of 2005, because that's the first year that Rose met the Doctor. And he was saying, I think you're going to have a really great year. So that was nice, just having that final moment where Rose meant so much to the Doctor, where she was the last person that he wanted to see before his regeneration. And then how he managed to get to the TARDIS, and then Ood Sigmo saying, we will sing you to your sleep. So you see all of the Oods singing to try to help the Doctor through his regeneration. And then, let's face it, the biggest thing of all is the last 4 words, I don't want to go. It has so much emotion behind it. The fact that the Doctor had been through so much, how he built so many relationships, he loved being that version of himself he didn't want to change. But then how you see that he was like slightly holding back because he knew that he still had to. And then how earlier on he was saying how even if he changes, it feels like dying, because some new person will walk away and everything he is dead. And how he still felt that way. And then what I find interesting then is how in the Day of the Doctor, the 10th Doctor was saying, Trenzalore, we need a new destination, because I don't want to go. So from any perspective, whether it's through the Doctor's own timeline or from the viewer's perspective, the last words we've ever heard from the 10th Doctor are still, I don't want to go. And you know Stephen Moffat did that on purpose. You know that evil genius decided to do that on purpose. But then Matt Smith's introduction as well was very fiery. He was all over the place. I thought that it was pretty interesting how they just showed off so quickly the energy that he has. But definitely, David Tennant does such a great job. I loved seeing him interact with everyone, how he interacted with Wilfred, how he interacted with the Master, his final visits for his companions, and then how in the Sarah Jane Adventures, the 11th Doctor reveals that it wasn't just the 10th Doctor's companions, but all of his companions that he ever had. He went back and he looked in on them. Speaking of, he also went to go see Sarah Jane, so that was funny how that worked in there, how the 10th Doctor showed up and he saved Luke from getting hit by a car, and then how Luke went to go get Sarah Jane, so he waved goodbye to her one more time. But it just had so much emotion, and the fact that it's the longest story they've ever had. Like, it was a two-parter, that's how long it was. Like, they had the first one for Christmas, and then they had the next one on New Year's Day. Like, they put so much. They haven't. I don't think they've ever put in so much effort for a regeneration story before, and I don't know if they ever will again. But it is definitely worth it. David Tennant is definitely such a great Doctor. He does such a good job of playing him off as a really cool person, someone who can be very passionate, someone who is definitely very heroic. But that is going to be my top 5 favorite 10th Doctor stories. Thank you so much for checking out the video. It has been a doozy. I tried to make it so I'm not just retelling the whole thing, but eventually I get so caught up in it because there's so much that I like that it almost literally does become a retelling. But if you stuck it out for the whole thing, then I really appreciate it, and I'll appreciate it even more if you hit that like button down below to show some greatly appreciated support. Comment your opinions on the video. If you agree with some of them, that's great. If you don't, feel free to state where you disagree, but, you know, be cool about it. Like, everyone is entitled to their opinion. But if you enjoyed that video here, make sure you subscribe so you can see more uploads like this and other videos that are very high quality. Yeah, I gotta put in those quotes. But with that, this long-winded outro, I will see you guys next time. Bye.